Rob, interesting that you brought that up with the debates because do you think the data that you collect for Pro Sports Outlook for the fan engagement stuff, do you think they focus more on positive outlooks like Michael Jordan, like how great he was, LeBron James, how great he is right now, or negative outlooks like arguments and people bashing each other for thinking LeBron's the greatest or Kobe's the greatest or
Like
Michael Jordan's the greatest? Right.
half the people in our studio
Do you think
opening their mouths about LeBron, trying to compare LeBron James to Michael Jordan, which is absolutely ridiculous.
Do you think there's
Ridiculous.
do you think there's more
Makes
engagement
me
and
sick.
interaction with the positive end of it or the negative end of it based on the data you collected?
So as far as our data, we're working on some proprietary value ratings. So it kind of summarizes a player's overall production into one simple, easy to understand metric that we haven't finalized or have a whole database that's accessible yet, but we do post it in some articles here and there, to support things. And so like, for example, LeBron, it'll say, his value per game is like 29.8, maybe best in the league or whatever, based on his, points per game, assists, shots, efficiency, all these different things. So that's more about, his individual achievements, his individual ability to produce on the court. So when you take those things into account, I mean, we haven't done anything from the past, so I have no clue how MJ would compare. But I mean, it just takes into account a player's overall body of work without thinking about the team success and how, their team wins. So when you think about that, it'd be interesting because, I mean, LeBron's a guy that also averages 8 assists, 8+ rebounds, whereas Jordan's, closer to the 5-6 range. So it'd be hard to tell. But from a fan engagement thing, perspective, I think, you definitely see a lot of debates about it. A lot of younger people saying LeBron, a lot of older people saying Jordan, which is, it's going to be the case. Like, you're going to want the guy in your era to be the greatest. Like, if I had my choice, I'd want LeBron to be the greatest. But as someone whose credibility is, defined by what I say and the takes I have, I can't realistically back up that argument right now because he hasn't proven that he's greater. Now LeBron's still one of the best, if not the best player in the league. So his story is yet to be finalized. So I think it's premature to say he has zero chance. Like, if he just three-peats with LA and Anthony Davis, or maybe they add someone else, like, who knows? Like, maybe that discussion comes right back up. But right now, I think it's pretty clear that just everything that Jordan accomplished over his career, he's on another level.
He's always going to be on another level. There's no argument to that. I'm sorry. And I like LeBron James. I stand up for LeBron James throughout the world. I've been on so many different shows as a special guest, from Fox Sports to all different shows. The Wiz out in the Carolinas. I'm always going on these different sports shows, and they're trying to compare Michael Jordan to LeBron James, and even some people actually tried to compare Kobe Bryant to Michael Jordan, which is
Yeah.
ridiculous. It is
Yeah.
ridiculous, and I'm not saying Kobe wasn't a great player and he did things like Michael Jordan did on the court, but Michael Jordan was on a different level. His game, when he walked out of the stadium, when he went to different countries, the guy was a god. He was a god, and
He
it's
was
so
the
fun.
guy.
Yes, and Charles Barkley said it very, very simple. He was on a couple of shows today, and I was listening to Charles Barkley on 2 shows today, and he stated that the biggest superstars he's ever been around, and he's been around a lot of them. The biggest 2 superstars he's ever been around was Tiger Woods and Michael Jordan, because
Right.
their presence everywhere they went, people, fans, mothers, sisters, daughters, it didn't matter who it was. Everybody knew who he was.
Yeah. No, I mean, he was literally a larger than life superstar and revolutionized not only basketball but sports in general. And they were talking about how the Dream Team's dominance, and Air Jordans especially, started to make basketball culturally relevant. And LeBron James has done his own thing. Like, he's made player empowerment, what it is today, and he's made, off the court endorsements and him having his own school. And, like, I'm not trying to take anything away from LeBron or any other player, but just if you look back and I just keep going to it. But, like, that's why I appreciate this documentary so much, is because out of all those arguments, debates, conversations, whatever you want to call it, now we're actually seeing the full picture, or at least more than what people thought they saw beforehand, and are able to actually understand how dominant this guy was in his era.
I wrote about something in college about verbal aggression with sports fans specifically, whether it's face to face or digital, where fans attack other fans for whatever reasons in different circumstances. In your opinion, and with the fan interaction numbers that you have, what circumstances do you think those occur in the most when it comes to looking at the way aggression happens in sports?
That's a good question. That's a really good question, Speedy. That really is.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
I say it all stems from fan bias. Like, if it really just all comes from, hey, I'm a Celtics fan, you talk shit about Jason Tatum, I don't like you, I'm going to verbally attack you. Or, I'm a Patriots fan, you're acting like we, as I say, quote, we, didn't earn 6 rings, I'm going to verbally attack you. So I think it really is always about, people talking about other people's teams and then them taking offense to it as if they're on the team and not necessarily seeing the bigger picture. So, like, for example, and I can bring up an example from today or yesterday, whenever it was, is we're doing this May Madness kind of bracket where we're allowing our fans or followers on Instagram at PSO Sports, by the way, to basically predict who they think will be the greatest athlete in the 2020s. And so we have, from Patrick Mahomes to Giannis, all the way down. I think we had a 16-person bracket. And so someone will comment like, how the hell did, Tua not make the list because they're a Dolphins fan? Or, how did people actually vote for Ronald Acuna over Juan Soto when Juan Soto just was was a dominant playoff performer, and like they're not seeing the full picture because their fan bias is getting in the way. So I think it really all stems from that.
We are talking to the Pro Sports Outlook CEO, Rob Mason. I want to get into some baseball talk. Before that, we were gonna actually put him on the video feed over here. We were gonna do it, and he actually took a shower. He shaved. He wanted to make sure he looked good for the fans. Come on,
shower and shaving, yeah.
Come on, Rob. I know, because he says, "Oh no, I thought you were gonna put me on a video," but we will. We're gonna have Rob and his partner on one day against me and you. We're gonna talk sports. And we're gonna have a trivia between them and us, and we'll see who comes out the winner. How's that sound?
Interesting. That sounds really interesting. I will say, my partner and I, we're much better at current knowledge than like if you were to throw out some 1990s questions, because you'll dominate us if that's the case.
Well, we'll mix it up a little bit, and you guys can get the question. You guys can get questions set up. We'll get questions set up, and we'll go back and forth, and we'll see who comes out the winners in this trivia contest. I think it'll be really, really fun. I think it really would be. Yeah. So I want to get into some baseball conversation, and a lot of people, and we've been talking to a bunch of play-by-play guys, analysts, and ex-NFL players, and even ex-MLB players. We've been really getting into this one conversation, this whole Houston Astros situation, where a lot of people are taking shots at the Rob Manfred's decision not to really do anything to the organization except the organization firing Hinge and the GM, and that's all they got. And they can actually, if there's no season this year, they could find jobs at the end of the season, Rob Manfred said, even if there is no season. So what are your thoughts that none of the players, really nobody, not even the owner, got really hurt from cheating and winning the 2017 World Series?
Yeah, it's refreshing to hear you bring this up, because this would have been the number one topic going on in baseball throughout the entire year, if we didn't have this whole situation going on. So now we're bringing it back to the prominence, and we're going to discuss some Houston Astros. So that's honestly probably the biggest thing that I'm disappointed about in this whole thing, is not being able to see what would have been a historic booing every single time the road Astros came into town, and just witness fans mercilessly abuse them verbally, with trash can noises, with whatever they came up with. That was the thing, is like, it was going to be something new, something creative, something we'd see on SportsCenter every time. And that's probably the biggest disappointment. And it all comes from, as you said, Manfred's decision not to suspend, any of these players, basically just give the manager and GM, their dismissals, and that was about it. But when it comes to this whole thing, people don't realize, I don't realize, you don't realize, the public doesn't realize, is that the Astros probably aren't the only one doing this, and they probably aren't doing it at a much higher level than everyone else. So if they were to, suspend players, do all these things, I think it really would have been uneasy for a lot of people in the league, because they know, hey, we were kind of doing the same thing. They got caught, and it's just a whole different situation. So I think the way that they handled it was actually probably the best possible way when you take all these things into account, knowing that, there's probably other teams doing it, that it would have been another steroid. It could have been like a whole nother steroid thing where, like, we're going team by team. Oh, this guy cheated, this guy didn't. And instead, let's just let's make one team an example of it. Let's kind of give them a little more. It was a good amount more than a slap on the wrist. Like, let's not underestimate the fact that Jeff Lunau was seen as one of the best GMs in baseball, that, AJ Hinch was seen as a top 5 manager, who both had World Series success and compiled a extremely talented team. So, their dismissals is, devastating for the franchise, losing the picks and so forth. I'm not saying it warranted, a lot, or it should have warranted a lot more, but, let's go make this team an example. And then everyone knows now, hey, you want to do this. Honestly, the biggest punishment, as Manfred alluded to, which kind of got a lot of criticism, is the fact that, they're going to hear it every time. Their legacies are changed forever. And when you play a sport at this high level, money's great and all, but at the end of the day, you're trying to leave a legacy. You're trying to cement a Hall of Fame status, a legend every time you walk through the ballpark, a jersey getting retired. And, this is going to impact those perceptions. And that's probably the biggest punishment of all that people have to realize, is a part of it.
2024, his contract will be up. Rob Manfred's contract will be up. Do you think now, with all these situations that have happened in the last 2 seasons with the Astros, now the Red Sox, he already said he's not coming out with any information until the baseball season begins, because he doesn't, I think he's trying to hide something, because he doesn't want this to be the big story, that he found a lot of things that the Red Sox did, and he's going to do this, and he's going to drop the hammer on the Red Sox. Do you think that in 2024, because of all these things that have happened to baseball, that he might lose his job?
Yeah, that's something that's 4 years away, so I'm sure that other things will happen between now and then that might influence that decision even more so. But looking at it from where we are now, I definitely think his stock has taken a hit for sure. Don't get me wrong, I like his name, but other than that, he definitely hasn't.
I like his name.
He definitely hasn't put himself in good favor. Just some of the things he says, and then you rerun it, and it's like, dude, why are you saying that? Like, you could have handled it a much better way. And like I said, I think, with everything involved, the way the punishment came across, I don't know if many commissioners would have handled it any differently, but the way that he has publicly approached situations, and his inability to effectively galvanize, the fan bases, the MLB nation, and just been a much better communicator, I think, is the main thing you want to see. Like, this guy is essentially the face of the league. He's the one announcing the draft picks and so forth. So I just think his communication skills, might not be what they're looking for in a commissioner. And so it's kind of been exposed at this point. He's literally had to have press conferences to go back on what he said in a previous press conference. It could definitely lead to his dismissal come 2024.